And when evening had come, since it was the day of preparation, that is, the day before the Sabbath, Joseph of Arimathea, a respected member of the council, who was also himself looking for the kingdom of God, took courage and went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Pilate was surprised to hear that he should have already died, and summoning the centurion, he asked him whether he was already dead. And when he learned from the centurion that he was dead, he granted the corpse to Joseph. And Joseph bought a linen shroud, and taking him down, wrapped him in the linen shroud, and laid him in a tomb that had been cut out of the rock. And he rolled a stone against the entrance of the tomb.
And I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself.
I am Joseph of Arimathea of the Sanhedrin. Arimathea is not a place mentioned outside the Bible. Some say the word could be a corruption of several place names. Anyway, I'll tell you my story, though sometimes I don't come out of it very well. He died at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the Friday. The next day was the Sabbath, the most holy Sabbath of the year, the feast of the Passover. I had to act quickly. Under Jewish law, the next day begins at sunset, 6 p.m. After this, no work is allowed. The Romans don't bury the bodies of criminals or terrorists. Usually they're just thrown down from the high beams and left on the ground for the vultures and the wild dogs. Golgotha, the place of the skull, outside the city, away from decent people, the place of torment and despair, the ground littered with the bones of so-called Roman justice. We're not like them. We have a law from a higher source, and we bury our dead. I knew they couldn't afford a tomb, Galilean peasants. Do you know how much a tomb in Jerusalem costs? But I knew I'd be taking a risk. By going to Pilate, I would be showing my hand, implying that I was in sympathy with the teacher. I had to play it carefully, insist that the demands of the law meant his body couldn't hang on the cross on the Sabbath. It also meant I'd be making myself ritually unclean on 2 counts, by going into the house of a Gentile and by touching a dead body. Did it matter? Yes. It meant that on our most holy day I wasn't able to eat the Passover. They say I'm the only source for what happened at the trial of Jesus. None of the other disciples could get near. But you don't know if I spoke up for him or remained silent. If I'm the source for the stories, I've not recorded what I did. Was this out of modesty or shame? I'm a figure of much legend and supposition. Did I come to Glastonbury in England? Did I bring the Grail? Did I plant the Glastonbury thorn? Was I a tin merchant and the uncle of Mary? Did I take the boy Jesus with me on my ships to England? There's the tradition that the senior male relative of a crucified person is obliged to deal with the body. The church has always believed that Jesus' father was elderly and died early in Jesus' life. Does the fact that I volunteered for the task suggest that I may have been related to Jesus? We know that a request for a body from someone who was not a relative could be refused by the Romans. From King Arthur to Dan Brown, they've speculated about me, but I remain an enigma. None of you are even sure about where I was from. But I'll tell you this, by the time I committed myself to following Jesus, I thought it was too late. You can't hide from him. He is too honest, always sees what you really mean, what you're really thinking. I saw his face at the trial that day, bloody and beaten. He looked straight at me, and there was such sadness in his eyes. "Joseph," they seemed to be saying, "won't you speak for me? Are you really so frightened?" I had a high status. I was an important man. I had a place on the council, and people looked up to me. When I saw him there, hanging on that cross, humiliated and beaten, I realised everything I had was meaningless. The Fine clothes, expensive wines, the best seat in the synagogue, a private tomb, none of it meant anything. It was a moment of clarity. I had no choice, so I risked everything and gave up what I had. I was a coward, but when I was confronted with the cross, even though I was terrified, I gave up cowardice and took decisive action. I asked the Roman governor for the body of Jesus.
Take us outside, O Lord, outside holiness, out to where soldiers curse and nations clash, at the crossroads of the world.
And so I stepped outside. Who was he? He was the one who called me just as he calls you, to leave cowardice behind, to make a decision, to be in solidarity with the kingdom of God, to go through his death and resurrection, to commit yourself to the road, his road, the road less travelled, the road of transformation, the road of reconciliation, the road of justice and peace, the road to Golgotha.
And Joseph brought a linen shroud, and taking Jesus down, wrapped him in the linen shroud, and laid him in a tomb that had been cut out of the rock. And he rolled a stone against the entrance of the tomb. Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of Jesus saw where he was laid.
We are the ones who stayed and watched while others ran. We are witnesses without legal right, whose words the law deems unreliable testimony. We are the ones who held his limp, twisted corpse and smoothed his blood-tangled hair. We are the ones who saw a good man place him in the rock and roll the stone. We are the ones who sit and tend here in this beautiful garden, so far from any terror, any pain. Sleep now, my child, in the cool folds of fine linen. Sleep, my darling, in the soft comfort of swaddling. Hush, sleep. There is nothing to fear. We will watch. Sleep. The day is over. Now is the time to rest. Sleep, my dear one. Goodbye, my love. Sleep, and we will sing you lullabies.